And welcome to Your Yes is Needed podcast. Today's guest, I have a friend of mine, Carol. I'm going to say it wrong, Guerrero. And
Lord Jesus.
and I asked Carol to come in this podcast because we've been finally having this conversation. I don't know how long she's been wanting this conversation. I thought we were never going to have this conversation because
Really?
yeah, because it's a hard conversation. Like most people don't want to talk about this stuff. You can, but you have to be willing and ready to be able to have this conversation.
I have to be ready.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas me, I'm just like tossed into things and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm ready. So like you have to once you're ready, you're like, all right, yeah, it was like this, it was like that, it was like this, like you're ready. So like in my book, I talked about so I should just have a little history. I've known Carol for a little over 2 years. And
Come on, Desi, do me better than that. It's been officially over 3 years at this point.
okay, so it's been officially over 3 years. My bad. And so Carol has seen different stages of my life. In fact, she knew me before I opened up iron therapy, before I got sectioned to the psych ward, before I stopped drinking. So she's no before I even went back to church, like she knew me at that stage. Okay. And the reason why it's important to know that is for why this conversation even happened. So, Carol has, when I first met her, Carol was faithful into going to church. She would not skip Sundays. She would not do anything that involved her interference with going to church. That part I knew about Carol. If we wanted to go to do a competition or do something on Sunday, she's like, no, no, that's not it. I don't interfere with God. Like she was like that faithful. Okay, so that part
It
I
was
knew.
that consistent. There's no question my consistency for attending church on Sundays.
Correct. And during that time, like that wasn't me. Like I'm like, nah, that ain't all right, good for you, but that ain't me. So when a lot of stuff went down to where I went this route, she stayed in that route, and I had this vision. I had this vision back in 2020, and I had
February 2020. Yep.
okay, she remembers the month. And I said, "Hey, I have this vision of a traveling team called Team Limitless, and I think you should be a part of it. In fact,
Mhm.
I know you should be a part of it. I see you on the team." And this is Carol. In fact, I invited her out to tacos to share this vision with her. And uh-huh, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh. I was like, this bitch. She don't care. Like, and then needless to say, nothing ever came from that dinner conversation. And so going forward, today we were having the conversation. It was like, man, like I can't believe you shared the vision with me. And it's like right in front of my eyes. Can you repeat what you said? Like how like you knew me, like you knew who I was, and these complete strangers had no idea who I was before, and like how it's affecting you.
Yeah, it's definitely like getting the conviction of the fact that like I was there before it all happened. And it was saying, how I see the picture now of Team Limitless, and I was like, it could have been me and Desi because she did talk to me first. Like you talked to me about this vision, and I saw it clear as day, like as if it was a movie playing in front of me. That's how vivid you had the details about this. And I think you had just finished competing. It was one of the first
It
competitions
wa-
that you had done
right,
successfully or
a high
something like
rocks
that.
competition. It was not a powerlifting. It was
Yeah,
not
it was
bodybuilding.
completely different. And you were like, I just did this competition and I see myself like I see this team, and it's going to be Team Limitless, and we're going to travel and we're going to compete and we're going to do all of these things. And I saw it, And I also knew what you were capable of doing because I had met you after you had lost 100 pounds. I mean, you were the reason why I went to certain places, because I was like, yo, she's the living embodiment of my challenge, you know, what I've always been trying to achieve. So I really looked up to you in that sense. And so like I knew how disciplined you could be and what you were capable of doing. But then you tell me this vision that you're having. And at that point, I think you had already started going to church, and that it, like, you told me also where it was coming from. And I was
I
like, nah.
told you it came from God. I said, listen, I have
Yeah.
this
And I was
vision.
like,
God's gonna hook me up. You're like,
and I
God.
was like, it's crazy because I know you, I know what you're capable of doing, and I believe that God exists,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't believe that God was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, yeah, that's cute that you're telling me, but I'll believe it when I see it. And certainly it's in front of my eyes now. And now it's like, well, you have no choice but to believe it because she told you this 2 years ago.
And
And now
I
you're
shared
seeing it.
with you earlier, like my biggest believers are the people that don't go to church, and my biggest doubters are the people that do go to church. And I've always had that conflict when I started Iron Therapy 2.0. Like I've in the beginning when I first started Iron Therapy, I've had this like, why is she doing this for free? Like what what is she really about? I would have people come to camp just to see if they can pick up my like my
What's
spirit.
the
And
hidden? Yeah.
right, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting in first. I know what your intentions are. I know why you're here, and I'll call them out like this. And they were just like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, and I said, I like, listen, I know my gift. I paid for it. Like I paid a
Mm-hmm.
price for it. And so I, in my book, I wrote like the biggest discouraging thing was like having this vision and not having believers believe.
Yeah.
And it what it happened, what it made me do was, and the reason why I had invited you, because I thought this was a very important conversation for anyone else that can relate on either side, is that because most believers don't really believe, the people that are really have an assignment to move out in faith, and if we're not careful who we talk to,
You can be
it,
talked out of it.
we can be talked out of it, and we can really believe that we're delusional.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was already called. I mean, hello, I just got discharged from the psych ward. Like
Yeah. I was
I
like, oh,
wasn't
she's
trying,
crazy.
and I wasn't trying to be called crazier than I was already. And I was just like, man, maybe I am crazy, or maybe I am hearing voices, or maybe this is a delusion. So what I learned was like, you can't talk to people about vision who don't have vision. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, like that sucks because I want to share
You
this
want to
so
share
much.
it.
I want to share with all these believers, and my biggest fight is with believers.
Yeah, it was that doubt that, like, I know God exists because I've seen what he's capable of doing, or I've heard what he's capable of doing in the lives of the people that are on TV, or in the lives of people that are not around me
Mhm.
on social media, right? So it's like, oh, God can do that for them, but they're legions away from me, and not believing that God could literally do that with someone who's a part of your life, like who's in your life, who you can like very clearly see and touch and speak to. And I think that was my challenge. And then seeing, Team Limitless come, and they didn't have your history, they didn't have our
Mm-mm.
background, they didn't know where you came from, and kind of like that evolution that I got to witness. And you tell them, I'm gonna have this powerlifting team and I really believe you should be on it. And I have to confess to you, even in that time, I was doubtful. I was like, are they really going to compete? Are they really going to train? Do they really know what, like,
Mhm.
just poking all of these questions and seriously overthinking the situation. I mean, thank God I didn't necessarily like voice that, because I could have turned off people who are now competitors, had I shared that doubt, or had I shared that hesitancy. And I mean, I'm just like, man, she asked me first, and I didn't trust, and I didn't believe that God can work in that way, that close to me. So it's definitely a moment of reflection that I've been having after reading the
Yeah.
book specifically.
So so a lot of people like say like, why do you how do you move out, like what are you not scared? I'm like, obviously I'm scared. But I believe being in the position that I am, I have the privilege of seeing what happens when people miss windows of opportunities.
Mhm.
I get to see it from my end because I'm like, man, like I don't want that to be me. But at the same time, I saw like the trend, right? I've also shared this with you, and I think I shared it with someone earlier in camp today. Like, the crazy part is you were sharing with me before, like you had this feeling, this intuition to start a fit ministry before I even opened camp.
Oh, you hadn't even stepped in church. The
Oh
pastor
no, no.
didn't know you.
I didn't step into church. Like, in fact, I think you post about it. Like, we joke around and we're thinking about doing
The
this
Get
fit
Fit
ministry.
ministry. Yep. Get Fit
Hmm.
ministry. Yep.
And then it never went nowhere.
It never went anywhere. It was all talk. There was no action behind it.
And then so what happened was like what we discussed earlier today, and what I saw was like, um I someone needed to open the gym. So either it was going to be me or it was going to be you. Someone needed to open the gym because to be available for when Pastor Davey got sick, to help him get back in position so that he can finish the mission. And so that meant someone had to be in position in order for him to be back in position. And that did something to me. That made me go like, wow, like it's never going to be about me, because I have the honor and I have the privilege of seeing the bigger picture. And it made me go like, man, because if I have a lot of opinions about old things, and and it makes me want to get healed even faster about old hurt, because I could have easily said, this is y'all pastor. This is not my
Right.
pastor.
Right.
Like, y'all made fun of me for opening up this gym. Y'all take care of it. I could
Mhm.
have easily made that decision and voiced that opinion, but I realized that my past opinions, my past hurt, or will only be hurting present people. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and so I'm thankful that I did not hold on to that grudge or hold on to that, y'all do it, because I would have missed my healing too,
Yeah.
because their commitment to showing up to my camp is the one that gave me the confidence to go, you got this. And I'm like, man, like these people don't even know me and they have
Mhm.
so much faith in what I'm doing. And I'm like, it just made me committed even more. And
Yeah, and the crazy part is that so you mentioned Pastor David, and Pastor David is my pastor. He's the one,
right.
that I came into Christianity through him and his wife and his family and to his church, essentially. And just how that kind of converged, like I knew you and Pastor David was my pastor, and he comes to your camp. And I actually think he started coming to your camp, and it's not like I made any introductions or anything. So it's not even like I played a part in that. Um, they had like seen us working out together from like months before or whatever, but I
It
had
was
nothing
from
to do with
Facebook.
them coming. Yeah, from Facebook and stuff.
Uh,
But
it,
they
you know,
came to camp before I came to camp, is what I'm,
yes,
I'm trying to get at. And then a bunch of
right.
people from church came.
Which that pissed me off. So the thing is, he had sent me like 2 or 3 months before. He had sent me a Facebook friend request. I was like, I hope this pastor know I cuss a lot on Facebook, but accept. So, like I was like, I'm not changing for nobody.
I don't care if you're a pastor. Jesus can walk in. I'm so gonna swear.
And so what happened was like, what I did not know is that when he was going through his physical illness, I was going through my mental illness. And so at
Mhm.
pretty much the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right.
Uh-huh. And prior to COVID happening, and then everything had to be virtual, he had spoken a word over me that helped me overcome a lot of the things that I was suffering from. And so when he had reached out to me and said like and was interested in coming to camp, I said to him, like, because you were in position, I was able to be in position. You can have any day you want. And I've kept
Mhm.
that word over a year. And so the the it helped me understand like some things I don't need to hold on to because there's always a bigger picture that I don't understand. I may
Mhm.
not get it, I may not like it, I may not like the in between or the process, but the outcome is always
Yep.
more powerful than way before, even bigger than my opinions. And so
100%.
right, so when the church started, because Pastor David started coming, Pastor Nita, the family, the whole church, and then you're all like, I think I'll come. All like
Every and
the
it's actually
nerve.
funny because during that time, I remember you used to post, but you used to post a little less. So you were always also of the saying that, very protective of that space, and very protective of the time that the pastors had, but also not trying to make it like a popularity contest, like, oh, you only come here because it's popular, and kind of, protecting that, and that making sure that whoever came in had genuine intentions and like was really there because their yes was given, right? So even though these were my pastors, there were very few times that I was allowed to be in there when the pastors were there. I don't think anybody else was allowed to be in there when the pastors were in there. It was
No,
their
their
time.
their time and their
It
dates
was
is
it
just
was
for them.
their it was their
However,
time.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and
Were the
now
other days that I
mhm,
used to come on those days. Don't even play me. We used
uh,
to have a board and my name was on the board. We used to come on those days. On the other
mhm,
days.
when it started becoming popular.
No, Desi, come on. Come on. We
So
were there before the skier was there.
so Iron Therapy opened January 5th, 2020.
Yes.
Yes. And no one came for 6 months. It was quiet. I know. Because I wanted to give up so many times because I was like, this is the sensitive part. I always say like the most sensitive part of your life is when you have to continue going forward when no one is in support of you and makes you question like your ability, like makes you question your choices. To me, I think that's the most hardest sensitive part of your life because you're either going to go back to your old ways or you're going to go forward because you can't stay in between because it's more miserable. And so I remembered no one came for 6 months because
No,
I
but
was
you
like,
also have to, I think you also have to recall. So you opened the camp in January 2020. COVID hits March 2020. And
right.
we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And we used
I,
to go outside. I remember there
yes.
were pictures of us with
We
scarves, and
were
the
out
whole
we
time
were outside.
we were outside running, and like,
So
well, I was walking,
let
you
me
were
finish
running.
let me fin- let me finish this part because I know you're let me finish this part. I know what you're doing. So there's one part where I'm trying to finish when the most sensitive part is hearing and feeling doubt to where like I actually was planning to go back to Chicago. I wrote that
You
in my
told me
book.
about that.
I
You
was
told me about
planning
that.
like a month before the past a month before everything took off. I had went back to Chicago, tried to move back,
Hmm.
and then I got a word, "Don't come back." I was like, "All right."
I remember because you offered me your apartment, and then you're like, "I'm
Mm-hmm.
not leaving," and I was like, "Wait."
I said you can rent my condo for
Hmm.
exactly what I paid for the mortgage. I just need
Hmm.
someone to run the camp here.
I was like, "Oh, she's really gonna go, and she's leaving the camp." Okay.
Because it was discouraging. Like you start questioning, like, am I hearing voices? Am I really crazy? Am I this? Am I that?
Hmm.
But this is why I talk about the price. The price is like still pushing through in spite of what it is. And so,
Um,
um, and then we were talking earlier today about like what is your part? And so like to me, my part was creating the camp and
mhm.
like and I put like everything I got into it. I mean, I worked my ass off with that. And so, um,
I mean,
but
you were driving to a new state and new city pretty much every chance you got,
like
picking up
weekly,
equipment.
I went to Maine, I
Yeah,
went to New Hampshire, I went to Rhode Island to
everywhere.
pick
You
up
were Rhode
equipment.
Island. You were everywhere.
hmm And so, um, I want to go back to the windows of missed opportunities, because I think that's the part that too many people can relate to, and not enough people want to talk about it. Because I think it's easy, and it is. I will admit, it's one of my most things that I kind of get irritated hearing when there's a lot of pressure in my life about like the next move and everything. A lot of people like, oh, just trust God, and I'm like, do you trust God? Like I'm like, do you trust?
Right. You're telling me to do something that you won't do yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me what you've been reflecting and what you have learned? And just by seeing it, by seeing the beginning, the middle, and now you know how like you
The
see
other
what's
side
about
looks
to.
like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, I don't like to use the word regret. Like, I don't, I believe you either take advantage of those opportunities, like when you get that window of opportunity, like you did, and like Team Limitless did. You take that leap of faith and you trust, or you let that window close, right? But if you let that window close, I think it goes back to how you introduced me and saying, it may take me time to get there, but am I willing to then have the conversations and have the tough conversations, right? Because that's where you really get to express what you learn. And for me, it's just realizing, the big realization is the fact that even though I believe God exists, I didn't believe in God, right? I
That's
believe he's
legit.
real, he exists, but I need to control Caroline's life. Like, you're good up there, God, but like I got it down here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe in me, because I'm right here. You're good and you're great and you exist, but like I don't believe that you're going to be doing all of these things in my life.
I see you
And
Sunday though.
right, I'll see you Sunday. You speak to me on Sundays. But God and I have this relationship where he kicks me when I need to be kicked. When I try to play it too safe, and I'm like, I think you're telling me to do something, God. I think you're telling me you want me to lift heavy, but like, I don't know, that's not safe. That's not comfortable. And he's like, you're gonna do it. So it's helping me realize the fact that, like, okay, this is what I do on Sundays, and this is what I say and what I quote unquote preach, but I'm not walking the talk that I'm giving. I'm not really as faithful as I thought or as I like to believe that I am. So how can I step into that or be more aware of those windows of opportunity that I can, that God could just be whispering to me and I'm just completely ignoring because of not being faithful, and
And
not
that and
trusting.
that is transparency to the max, that a lot of people need to go there and they won't. Instead, and I was sharing this you earlier today as well, like, because a lot of people are not transparent and honest with themselves about their faith and their relationship with God, they'll look at someone like me who just came out of nowhere and just like said, okay, like I'm gonna move because God told me to move every single time. Like when He tells me to move, I move. I don't question it. And it's like, well, how come you're doing all this in her life and not me? And I'm like, I don't make the rules. Like I don't
Yeah,
make all I do is move. Like I
yeah,
just want to move. Like whatever the next instruction is, I move. And even if I don't understand it, or if I'm struggling to make it happen, I will make it happen and move. And so a lot of people, like you said, at a very comfortable state of mind, they don't want to make sacrifices. Like, what was I telling my cousin? Like, obedience gives you clarity, and sacrifices gives you your next move. And when you
hmm,
don't have neither one of them, you're just living another year. You're just
yeah,
celebrating another birthday,
yeah.
and
You're
it
just
just looks the
existing. You're not
same.
living, and it's one of those things where I'm so grateful for having gone through this process, but also being. And you told me I had to get to the core of my onion, and I think I'm getting closer. I'm like 2 years later, but I think I'm getting closer to the core of my onion. I've been peeling the layers for the last 2 years. So
People
I'm
wonder why I'm
grateful.
hard on you. Like people like, wait, that was bogus. Like you really I'm like, yes, but I know who I'm dealing with.
Yeah, I can handle it. It's fine. And I take my, like I tell you, I will get there. I just need the time to get there. It may be 24 hours or it may be 2 years, but I'll get there. And so in this process, for me, it's being able to not sit here and be like, well, why is God using Desi to do that? Like, I was the Get Fit ministry person, and like I was that person in my church. And stepping back, I never thought that, by the way, but
But
being
you're right.
self-aware enough to
I
be like,
believe
I'm
you.
not faithful. Like,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't faithful. I didn't put in the work. I wasn't in position. I wasn't obedient. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if I was God, I wouldn't choose me either. Like,
No, what you said was like right how people think. Like I do this, I do that, and it's like, yeah, you're doing what you want to do, but you're not doing what I'm telling you to do.
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
your outcome is a reflection of what you want to do, and you're getting your results versus you're not following the plan that I have prepared for you, and
Mm-hmm.
so you're getting a completely different results. Whereas me, I'm like bam, 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 bam,
Yeah,
bam.
it's gonna take you longer to get to your purpose. It's, you said it in the book too. Denial leads to delay.
Hmm.
All it's going to do is be delayed.
I talk about that's my favorite chapter of the book when I was in so denial, and every time I went to the doctor's office, I was like,
Yeah. Oh my
ah.
gosh. When you said the doctor, are you calling me fat? I literally laugh out loud whenever I think of that line because I could picture you saying that to the doctor as you're sitting there,
Let
almost
me just talk
300
about it
pounds.
real quick about those who didn't read the book. So I was almost 300 pounds, and the doctor was really concerned about my health, and he was like, "So you're going to have to make some changes in your life. We do offer gastro bypass surgery," and I was like, "Wait, are you calling me fat? Like, cause I'm not fat, bro." Like, and here I am, almost 300 pounds, like barely breathing, and so like, yeah, denial means delay. Like,
And when I look in the mirror, it's like, girl, you've been denying this for a long, like, you've been going around in circles because you refuse to obey what you know that God has been telling you. Like, he can't tell me any clearer at this point. So
so you're beginning to recognize that, and you're young, so that's good. But most people are in very much denial, and very will prolong it. Like I always say, denial does not have an expiration date. That's the scary part. When you're tired of your own stuff, that
mm-hmm.
has an expiration date, because you will eventually be like, all right, we're coming to an end.
Yep. And it could be at 30, it could be at 90.
Hmm.
Eventually you'll get there.
And so with your level of, you recognize your level at one point of your denial, when was the turning point for you where you're like, okay, this ain't it? And you read my book, This Ain't It.
I did read the book, This Ain't It. I think I got there. Well, motherhood changed me for sure. When I had my baby last year and just seeing how my health deteriorated at a moment where I should be taking care of my health the most, because now someone else's life depends on me being healthy and me being here for them. Um, it just got to the point where it was just like, okay, I've had this goal my entire life and I'm just going in the opposite direction of the goal. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, clearly my way is not working. But then also just seeing, I came back to camp after having the baby and just seeing the progress that Team Limitless made in the year that I was sitting comfortably because, oh, I just had a baby. I'm so tired. Like, I don't have the energy. I'm not strong enough anymore. Like, just being full of my own excuses and realizing that what I was sitting down at home, feeding myself these excuses and feeding myself pizza or whatever it was, these girls were lifting and they were training and they were being
Yeah.
consistent, and you were changing. You started going from one show to 10 shows later and your body's completely different. And I'm just like, clearly my plan is not working. And clearly what I know doesn't mean shit if I do any, like, I'm not doing anything with all this knowledge and all this research and all this stuff. So it's like something has to change. And I think I
Mm-hmm.
told you this, where I was like, God already told me there's nothing else I can teach you, girl. Like, there's nothing else you have to read. There's no other podcast you have to listen to. Like, there's no other book. Like, you just have to do the work. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
like, you just really have to do the work.
Thank you for bringing that up. So we had a conversation in one camp day, and then you kept telling me you can't do it, and I said, Carol, There's a big difference between can't and hard. You
Mm-hmm.
can do it, it's just hard. And then you confess, that means I have to push a little harder, or I have to get out of my comfort zone a little more. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Yes, that has always been your problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
you put in a little more work than you want to or you desire. It's just something you're like,
I limit myself to where my comfort is. And it was funny because I didn't, I mean, a lot of times you talk to me, now it's better. But before you would talk to me and I wouldn't understand what you were talking about. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Or like it I think you know that I'm a very instructions oriented person. Like tell
mm-hmm,
me exactly the instructions, right? Like A plus B is gonna get me to C. Okay, cool. I
mm-hmm.
can work with that. But you're like, Caroline, this is C. And you didn't tell me A and B. So I'm like lost. Um, so I remember I lifted the weight after I told you I couldn't do it. And
Oh
I
yeah.
gasped at the end. And you were like, yes, that's the sound I was looking for.
Yes.
And I told you, I said, I'm used to leaving gas in the tank.
Yes, that's what you said.
I'm used to leaving gas in the tank, meaning I can make it look like it's very difficult, but it looks perfect. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable as long as my output is perfect, or at least
Mm-hmm.
looks perfect. The minute it's difficult enough to where that perfection is no longer there, then that's where I'm uncomfortable and I don't trust myself to be able to do it. And so I stop myself from doing it. So it's like, if you're going to push me to failure, I will always stop just short of getting to that point.
Yeah, so like for example, the one deadlift video where I was like, Carol, we're not going nowhere until you do that. And then I was like, oh, we're gonna he's like you and I knew what to say. I said, Carol, you lift those three, then you're done for the rest of the night. But if I had told you you had two more sets, you'd be like, I don't have no more. I can't. So I knew what to say. I said, if you lift those three, you're done for the rest of the night. And miraculously, you
I
did
did three.
you did 3 clean ones, I said.
And you know what the thing was with that? Um, and I think you've mentioned a lot this week to other team members. Look at me, including myself in the team, like I'm part of the team. You said to other people at the camp, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know?
Right.
And so for me, it was getting to that point. You told me I had to do 3 sets of 5. That was my instruction. Those were my numbers.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't wrap my mind around doing anything less than the 3 sets of 5 until someone else came up to me and just said, just try one, see if you can get one up. And just remember, you're having fun. So it was like, okay, let me not think about 15. Let me think about getting this one.
Mhm.
And then I got that one. And then you came over, you were like, okay, now let's do 3. So it was like, okay, now let me push myself for 3. But that whole time was reworking my mentality that, first of all, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just have to give it my best effort. And if my best effort leads to 9 out of 15, that's still 9
Right.
more than what I thought. Because I was ready to not do any of them.
Right. You would have been like, I can't do 5, so I can't do none.
Exactly.
And
Instead
so
of just saying,
that's
like,
why
let me go
that
for how many I can do.
that's why like I push ability first. It depends on who I'm talking to. Like some people I need them to know they have the ability to do so, and then we can work things out later on. And some people we need to work on things first and then work on it. So I work with each individually as long as they open up to me. But with you, I had to at least get you to the ability part because you kept fighting me like what you can't do. And
Yeah, I
so
didn't trust that I could do it. I was like, I'm not as strong as I used to be. I'm very weak. You had me doing the same number some of the girls who had been training, which is I'm like, what is she doing? I'm not as strong as these girls. Just my self-doubt and my fear was keeping me from following the instructions. But I will say, because I've learned my lesson to not listen and what happens when you don't listen, I, similar to what you said in your book, I have to forget what I think I know. I
mhm.
kept saying, "Oh, but I'm gonna get hurt. Oh, but this," and then you kept
Right.
saying,
And
like,
I'm
"When
like,
have
where
you ever
does
gotten hurt?"
fear? I said, where is this fear coming from? When did you get hurt? She was like, never. I was like, you've
Never.
never been hurt in your whole life. Meanwhile, I have stitches on my forehead. I have dislocated thumb, torn
Nope.
knees, and then
Broken bones, never. Not one.
your
Not a
biggest
single one,
fear is
thank God.
something that has never happened.
Yes. And so hearing that out loud, I was like, wow, I'm full of shit for doing that. But also just having a little bit of faith and saying, like, what I think I know clearly has not worked. So let me just forget what I know and trust someone who knows more. Let me just try to follow someone else's lead for one.
Right.
Let me
And
just try.
and then this week, when you were like, I don't think I'm gonna do squats. Like,
I haven't
I
squatted
haven't squatted in 2 weeks. I was like, okay. Get underneath that bar. And then you were able to hit 225 pounds, which you haven't seen in a couple of years. And so I'm like, so I know my instructions for each person that comes to that camp. And so when I told you what your instructions were given,
I
you're
was like,
like,
all right.
I was like, did he really tell you that?
Right. I was
I'm like,
like, did
still?
he say like 100 pounds or did he say like 15 pounds? Because both of those are heavy in my book.
Hey, so we have like 2 minutes left. What would you like to tell people that that are too afraid to share what they really feel like, what their where their level of faith is at, and is it is there such thing as embarrassing? Like, what is it that you want to share about, like, your what you have discovered from your before and now?
You can't grow out of your fear until you acknowledge where your fear has been limiting you or where your lack of faith has kept you. So, like, until you acknowledge that to yourself, like, truthfully acknowledge that to yourself, and then put it out there and have these kinds of conversations and these difficult kind of thoughts where you're that honest. Until you do that, you're not really going to be able to move past the place that you've been stuck in.
And
Anyway,
and what would you say, what would you encourage those people that have recognized that limitation, and what first steps should they make in order to allow this radical faith that God wants us to reach?
it really is just, just try. Just put yourself out there and trust God. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just take one step in the direction of what you're afraid of doing and ask yourself, like, what's the worst that can happen? And is it really that bad? But also, what's the best that can happen? And it will really be that good. So, which coin do you want to toss? But really, it's usually never as bad as we think it's going to be.
That's good. That's good. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Thank you, Carol, for sharing this part.
You're
And
welcome.
I hope more people become blessed from this part of
Amen to
sharing
that.
and reaching out and stepping out on faith. So, deuces. Thank you
Ciao.
all.